The conference room at Meditech Innovations smelled like success. Leather chairs, fresh coffee, and the faint chemical tang of newly printed money. Alexandra Park stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching Seoul's afternoon sun paint the city gold, her reflection a ghost against the gleaming towers. "Miss Park?" Ji-won's voice honeyed with desperation. "We're ready to begin whenever you are." Alexandra turned, her movement deliberate as falling dominoes. The smile she wore had taken 3 years to perfect in hotel mirrors across Manhattan, warm enough to trust, cold enough to fear. "Of course, forgive me, I was admiring your view." She settled into her chair with practiced elegance. It must be satisfying building something this high from nothing. "Well, not exactly nothing," Taejun laughed, that nervous sound she once found charming. "We had some initial family investment, 30 million won, according to your filing documents." Alexandra's fingers found the orchid pin on her lapel, white gold, almost invisible against her black Chanel suit. For just a moment, her thumb pressed too hard against its edge, the pain sharp and grounding. "Quite generous family." Ji-won's hand found Taejun's across the mahogany table. The diamond on her finger caught the light. 2 carats, cushion cut, the exact ring from the Cartier catalog page that had been bookmarked on a different woman's laptop 7 years ago. "We've been blessed," Ji-won said. Blessed. The word hung in the air like incense at a funeral. Alexandra opened her portfolio with surgical precision. Inside, between the contracts worth $50 million and the company valuation reports, lay a single pressed flower petal. So thin, it was almost transparent. Nobody else would notice it. Nobody else needed to. "Well then," she said, her voice silk over steel. "Shall we discuss how I can help you keep everything you've built?" 5 years of planning had led to this moment. 5 years of becoming someone else entirely. But it wasn't always like this. 7 years ago, Minna's apartment bloomed with life. Orchids covered every surface, purple dendrobiums cascading from shelves, white phalaenopsis catching morning light, rare yellow cattleyas her grandmother had cultivated for 40 years. The air hummed with humidity and hope. "You're going to revolutionize medicine with these," Taejun had said that morning, kissing her between the rows of specimens. "Orchid-based antibiotics, my brilliant fiancé." She'd laughed, soil under her fingernails, hair tied back with the elastic from yesterday's lab notes. "Only if the inheritance comes through," grandmother's lawyer said. "It will." His certainty felt like sunshine. "And Ji-won's bringing the papers tonight. Family dinner, remember?" Family. The word had tasted sweet then. Minna had been cataloging her newest specimen when she heard the apartment door. Too early for dinner. She'd walked toward the living room, still holding the delicate yellow orchid, when she heard it. A sound that didn't belong. Her sister's laugh, but different. Breathless, coming from the bedroom. Time became honey, thick and golden and suffocating. The bedroom door was cracked. Through it, she saw her life ending in fractions. Taejun's bare shoulder, Ji-won's hand with fresh scratches down his back. The engagement party dress, Minna's dress, crumpled on the floor. The orchid pot slipped from her fingers. The crash made them turn. Ji-won's face shifted from ecstasy to something worse, triumph. She didn't even reach for the sheets. Minna, not Unnie, not sister, just her name like discarding a worn coat. Taejun's mouth opened, closed, opened again. But Ji-won spoke first, still naked, still unashamed. "The papers are on the kitchen table. I already signed them for you. The inheritance, the research, everything, it's done. My grandmother's money is building our future now." Ji-won stepped closer, Taejun's cologne on her skin. "You were always too soft to do anything meaningful with it anyway." The yellow orchid lay shattered on the floor, its roots exposed and writhing. That was the moment Minna decided she wouldn't heal from this and she would become it. The first year, Minna lived on floors. Seoul, Tokyo, New York. Any surface that would hold a body that had forgotten how to be human. The orchids died in her abandoned apartment. Sung-min told her later when he found her in that Gangnam subway station at 3 a.m. barefoot and speaking to no one. "You need help," he'd said. Her oldest friend turned private investigator, pulling his coat around her shoulders. "No," her voice had been rust on metal. "I need to become someone else." The transformation took 4 years, 8 months, and 13 days. Year 2, English lessons until her accent erased Seoul entirely. MBA applications written in coffee shops at 4 a.m., hair darkened from brown to black, cut sharp enough to draw blood. The first time she looked in a mirror and didn't recognize herself, she smiled. Year 3, New York. Columbia Business School, where nobody knew orchids once grew under her hands. She studied venture capital like a general studies war. Every weakness, every pressure point, every way to dismantle a company from inside. Sung-min visited twice, each time saying she looked more like a weapon than a woman. Year 4, the internships. Goldman Sachs, where she learned to eat men's careers for breakfast. The partner who said she was too aggressive never knew she took it as a compliment. She kept a single orchid in her Manhattan studio but never watered it. Watched it die slowly, perfectly, teaching her patience. "You're not the same person," Sung-min said during her final transformation, watching her burn every photo, every memory. "Minna would never." "Minna is dead." She'd practiced the name in mirrors until it felt true. "I'm Alexandra Park now." Year 5, the hunting. Tracking Jiwon and Taejun's company, their routines, their weaknesses. Learning Jiwon still craved approval, that Taejun took Xanax for guilt-induced insomnia, that they'd built Meditech on Minna's stolen research, her grandmother's money, her orchid-derived compounds. Now, in the conference room, Alexandra's fingers traced that white gold orchid pin, the only reminder that something once bloomed instead of withered. She had become the killing frost she once protected her flowers from. Rain lashed against the restaurant windows. The same French bistro where Taejun had proposed 8 years ago. Alexandra chose it deliberately, watching Jiwon's face for recognition that never came. "You're offering 50 million?" Jiwon leaned forward, her desperation perfuming the air between them. That's more than we dreamed." "You already stole more than that," Alexandra thought, but her smile remained venture capitalist perfect. "Meditech's orchid-derived compounds are revolutionary. Your antibiotics could change medicine." Taejun's wine glass stopped halfway to his lips. "You know about the orchid research?" For one crystalline second, Alexandra's mask slipped. The way he said orchid, the same reverent tone from when he'd watched Minna work. Soil under her fingernails, explaining how each species held different healing properties. Her hand found the pin at her collar. "Of course, it's in your patents." She recovered smoothly, but Sung-min's text vibrated against her thigh. "You're playing with fire. Get out." "The patents," Jiwon laughed, nervous. "Yes, my sister actually." She stopped. "I mean, my late grandmother was a botanist. Family tradition." Late grandmother, sister. The lies came so easily to her. Alexandra raised her glass. "To family traditions, then, and to new partnerships." Their glasses clinked. Through the rain-distorted window, she glimpsed her reflection. Sharp suit, sharper smile, nothing remaining of the woman who once pressed flowers between poetry books. "There's one condition," Alexandra continued, watching them tense. "I require 51%, standard for my firm." 51, Taejun started. "It's that or nothing." She pulled out the contracts, each page a carefully laid trap. "I'll be hands-on, office on site, daily involvement." Jiwon's hand found Taejun's wrist, the same possessive gesture from that bedroom 7 years ago. "We should do it. I trust her." She turned to Alexandra with hungry eyes. "You remind me of someone I used to know, but stronger." The irony tasted like copper in Alexandra's mouth. Later, after they'd signed, after champagne and false promises, Alexandra stood in the rain without an umbrella. Sung-min materialized beside her, forever her shadow and conscience. "You got them to sign their company away." His voice held no celebration. "Minna would be horrified. Minna would be poor and powerless. Water ran down her face like the tears she no longer produced. Alexandra gets things done by becoming them. She thought of Jiwon's grateful smile, Taejun's trusting handshake. Tomorrow she'd sit in their boardroom. Next month she'd know every secret. By winter she'd own everything they'd built on her bones. No, she said, rain washing away any trace of warmth. By becoming worse. The audit began on a Tuesday. Alexandra had scheduled it perfectly the day before Meditech's biggest investor presentation. She watched from her new office as forensic accountants descended like antibodies attacking an infection. These discrepancies go back years, the lead auditor announced, loud enough for the entire floor to hear. The founding capital sources don't match declarations. Jiwon's face drained to paper white. There must be some mistake. No mistake. Alexandra held up the original documents she'd carefully preserved. Just thorough investigation. The satisfaction lasted exactly 3 heartbeats. Then came the emptiness, vast as an abandoned greenhouse. Over the following weeks, Alexandra orchestrated their unraveling with surgical precision. A whisper to the right reporter about embezzlement. An anonymous tip to the tax authorities. She watched Jiwon's confidence fracture like dropped porcelain, crying in bathroom stalls, hands shaking as she signed papers she didn't understand, calling Taejun 15 times when he didn't come home. My sister was right, Jiwon confided one night, both women working late, Alexandra pretending sympathy. I was never as strong as her. Minna, she would have handled this better. The name hung between them. Alexandra's finger traced the orchid pin until it drew blood beneath her collar. Your sister? Dead. Car accident 5 years ago. Jiwon's lie came so easily. I inherited her research, built this company to honor her memory. That night, Alexandra found Sujin, the young analyst, sleeping at her desk over financial documents. 24 years old, brilliant, sending her entire salary home to her sick mother. The girl had discovered discrepancies Alexandra had planted, was building a whistleblower case. You're so brave, Sujin had said, eyes shining with admiration. Exposing corruption, protecting investors. You're like a hero. Hero. The word curdled in Alexandra's throat. The next morning, Sungmin cornered her in the parking garage. That girl trusts you. When this implodes, she'll be blacklisted, unemployable. You know what that means for her mother's treatment. Collateral damage. The words felt like swallowing glass. Listen to yourself. He grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to meet his eyes. You're destroying an innocent to punish the guilty. You've become Jiwon. Alexandra pulled away, but her reflection in the car window stopped her cold. Designer suit, calculated expression, dead eyes. She thought of Jiwon 7 years ago, naked and unashamed, destroying her sister for gain. In her pocket, the orchid pin felt heavier than gravity. She'd kept one in water on her desk, black now, mutated from neglect. It had sprouted 3 new shoots this week, each one darker than the last. Beautiful things grew twisted when fed on poison. I'm not like her, she whispered, but even she didn't believe it anymore. The rooftop garden of Meditech headquarters had been Jiwon's pride. Rows of orchids in greenhouse enclosures, a cruel mimicry of what she'd destroyed. Rain hammered the glass ceiling as Alexandra waited, the emergency board meeting notice still glowing on her phone. Jiwon arrived breathless, designer heels clicking against wet concrete. The board says you're calling for my removal. After everything She stopped, stared. The recognition dawned like nausea. Alexandra had removed the colored contacts, let her natural brown eyes show. The orchid pin moved from her collar to her hair, exactly how Minna used to wear it. No, Jiwon's whisper barely carried over the rain. You're dead. The accident. There was no accident. Alexandra's voice shed its foreign edges, soul returning home. Just a woman who spent 5 years becoming someone you'd kneel for. And you did kneel, didn't you, Jiwon? begging for my approval, my money, my validation. Jiwon stumbled backward, her body recognizing what her mind rejected. Mina. That person died in an apartment 7 years ago, watching her sister fuck her fiancé in her bed wearing her engagement dress. Each word deliberate as a scalpel cut. You killed her. I'm what grew from the corpse. The company, you've destroyed everything. Everything you built on my grandmother's money, my research, my life. Alexandra stepped forward, rain sliding down the glass above them like the tears she'd forgotten how to cry. Did you think about me at all when you published my orchid compounds as your discovery? Jiwon's face crumpled, then hardened. A laugh, bitter as failed medicine, escaped her throat. You want to know the truth? You were weak, soft, growing flowers while I was growing ambition. She straightened, that old cruelty surfacing. I took it because you would have wasted it. Maybe. Alexandra pulled out the final documents, bankruptcy papers, criminal charges, everything. But at least I became something while destroying you. You just became nothing. Jiwon's smile turned savage. Look at yourself. You're me now. We're the same. The silence stretched between them, taut as held breath. Lightning illuminated their faces, mirror images of destruction. Yes, Alexandra finally said, rain drumming the countdown to their ending. We are. The orchids around them bloomed black in the stormlight, fed on years of poisoned soil. The arrest happened at Jiwon's baby shower. Alexandra watched from across the street through the restaurant's pristine windows. Pink balloons, laughing executives' wives, Jiwon glowing with second trimester confidence, until the prosecutors walked in. The warrant in their hands contained 7 years of evidence Alexandra had methodically compiled. Embezzlement, fraud, forged documents with Jiwon's real signature overlaying Min-ah's stolen one. Taejun wasn't there. He'd been taken from his office an hour earlier, his computer seized, the orchid-derived patents exposed as theft. Alexandra had ensured the timing separately so they couldn't comfort each other. The same isolation they'd left her in. The baby shower guests scattered like disturbed moths. Jiwon's hand went to her stomach, protective, her mouth shaped please, but no one was listening anymore. 3 hours later, Meditech's stock price flatlined. The compound Alexandra had made them stake everything on, a modified orchid extract, failed FDA approval. She'd known it would. The formula was wrong, missing the one element only Min-ah had understood: patience. Orchids couldn't be rushed. Neither could revenge. Their house in Gangnam went to auction. The cars repossessed. The bank accounts frozen. Alexandra stood in what had been Jiwon's office, now stripped bare except for one thing: a framed photo on the floor, forgotten in the chaos. Their grandmother, standing between young Min-ah and Jiwon, hands on both their shoulders. Before everything rotted, she picked it up. Behind the photo, pressed flat, was a dried white orchid, one of Min-ah's, labeled in her careful handwriting, "For Jiwon's wedding, may you bloom in love." Her phone buzzed. Sung-min. Taejun tried to overdose, hospital. Jiwon's there, handcuffed to the bed, stress bleeding. The baby. Alexandra's fingers found the orchid pin, pressing until it punctured skin. Blood spotted the dried flower, red on white like everything she'd touched. Sung-min appeared in the doorway, aged by watching her transformation. They're destroyed, completely, just like you were. He paused. Soo-jin was fired, blacklisted. Her mother's treatment stopped. Is this what winning looks like? Alexandra turned to the window. Below, workers were removing the Meditech sign letter by letter, MEDI disappearing into nothing. In its place, her acquisition company's logo rose, a black orchid. Min-ah would have saved them, she said to her reflection. Yes, Sung-min's voice was funeral soft. She would have. The dried orchid crumbled in her hand, 7 years of preservation undone in an instant. The pieces fell like snow, like ashes, like everything she'd once been able to grow. Nothing would bloom here again. The hospital smelled like endings, antiseptic and anguish. Alexandra stood outside the maternity ward, watching through reinforced glass as Jiwon held her premature daughter. Stress-induced labor at 7 months. The baby, impossibly small, hooked to machines Minna once designed prototypes for, back when she believed technology could heal. Taejun was 2 floors up, sedated after his overdose attempt. His note had been 1 line. Minna was right to leave us. Sujin had called 17 times. Alexandra didn't answer. Couldn't explain that the bright young woman was collateral damage in a war that started before she was born. That innocence was just another casualty. The baby might not make it, Sungmin said beside her. Complications from the stress. Alexandra's reflection in the window showed nothing. No satisfaction, no regret, just vast emptiness where a person used to exist. The orchid pin lay in her pocket, removed finally. It left a permanent scar on her collar, a mark that would never fade. Alexandra returned to her penthouse, purchased with Meditech's accumulated profits, furnished with everything Jiwon had once wanted. She sat in the Italian leather chair Jiwon had bookmarked online, drank from crystal glasses identical to those at her wedding, wore the watch Taejun had saved for but never could afford. She owned everything they'd built, everything they'd stolen, everything that mattered to them. The silence was absolute. In her private study stood a single black orchid, the last of her cultivation. She'd fed it with specialized compounds, forced it to bloom out of season, mutated it into something unrecognizable. It was beautiful in its wrongness. Petals like dried blood, stem twisted into impossible angles, roots visible above soil like exposed veins. She thought of her grandmother's greenhouse, how the old woman would sing to the plants in dialect, believing happiness helped them grow. Minna, flowers understand love better than people. They bloom or wither based on what you feed them. Alexandra had fed hers rage for 7 years. Her phone showed the news. Meditech founders charged with fraud. Below it, a suggested article. Young whistleblower Sujin Kim found dead. No. She checked again. Misread. Young whistleblower Sujin Kim finds new job abroad. Small mercy. Sungmin's doing probably cleaning up her damage. She walked to the window. Seoul glittered below, indifferent to her victory. Somewhere, Jiwon sang to her premature daughter. Somewhere, Taejun learned to breathe with tubes. Somewhere, Minna's real grave, the one she dug herself, waited empty. 8 years ago, before everything, Min-ah and Jiwon in grandmother's garden, dirt under their nails, sun in their hair. Promise me, grandmother had said, ancient hands on both their heads. You'll take care of each other. Sisters are just flowers from the same root. You bloom together or wither alone. They'd promised, laughed, hugged with soil-stained arms. Present, Alexandra, not Minna, never Minna again, stood in her empty victory. The black orchid had sprouted a single white bud overnight, pure, impossibly clean against the corrupted parent. She touched it gently, and it crumbled to ash. Outside, snow began to fall. Too early for the season. Climate changed and wrong. Like everything she'd touched. Like everything she'd become. The orchid pin lay on the table. She could throw it away, could keep it, could wear it. Nothing would change what had already withered.